Hey, this is Chris from Rekkid Talk, so I'm going to jump on a thread that was started by Glen Kellaway, where he was talking about some of his favorite female artists. So I'm going to go through a bunch of people. I'm going to kind of go chronologically in terms of when I became fans, when I started buying their music. So this isn't necessarily chronological in when these records were actually released. So I was a kid in the 70s, so like most little boys my age, I thought Kiss was really cool and some of the other sort of album oriented rock, pretty male dominated. I'm pretty sure that Pat Benatar was the first woman who I ever bought an album of. The album I'm showing is the one that I happen to own right now, Crimes of Passion. I actually had Precious Time that I bought when I was probably 12 or so. Somewhere along the way, I've lost that album, and but I have this one from sort of that same time period of the early 1980s. And I remember hearing like Blondie and the Go-Go's on the radio, but I never bought any Go-Go's or Blondie at that time period. And I'll be honest, during my teen years in the 80s, especially during sort of my heavy metal, hair metal phase, if there was a woman on the album cover, it was usually because she had a snake sliding between her breasts. So something tacky like white snakes slided in, that sort of thing. As I got a little bit older, I started getting more into like your 80s and 90s alternative, what was called college rock for a while before it became alternative. So again, you still have lots of guys in punk and post-punk. Then eventually what became grunge. But you started getting some women as well. Throwing Muses. Edie Burkell and the New Bohemians. This would have been a tape cassette I bought when I was an undergraduate. May have been probably after Pat Benatar, one of the very first female-fronted groups I bought. I remember my mom buying me Tracy Chapman. I ended up liking that more than I really thought I was going to. Another tape cassette I got was Susie and the Banshees Peep show. And I know for my British viewers, it'll seem weird to you, but that was sort of my entry point to Susie on the Banshees. I was pretty much blissfully unaware of them throughout the late 70s and early to mid 80s. But I really liked the Peep show and kind of went backwards with them. An extremely underrated band from late 80s, early 90s was Mary's Danish, that had two women as their co-lead singers. This is what I felt was their best album, Circa, from 1991. Sort of a sad story with them. They got royally screwed over by their record label. My least viewed video ever, which had 4 views the last time I checked. I'll probably link to it in the end screen. I'd like to get it up to at least 10 views. And so then I got into stuff like, if you watch my channel, you know that I knocked over my camera. All right, so I got my camera back up. And so this was the first Juliana Hadfield album I heard. This was her solo debut. So she had been in the Blake Babies before that. Blake Babies being a Boston area college rock jangle pop band in the late 80s, early 90s. But Hey Babe from 1992 was my entry point to her. And I pretty much followed her ever since. She's got that very girlish voice, but if you listen to her lyrics and listen to her guitar, there's really quite the counter contrast between her vocals and the music and the lyrical content. And bands like the Breeders and Belly and Liz Phair and PJ Harvey and Bjork and Tori Amos, all from that same time period. If you want to get a little bit harder, we've got some L7, you got Babes in Toyland, Bikini Kill, Luscious Jackson, Veruca Salt, Letters to Cleo, No Doubt. It seemed like there was at least that time period for a while where women really seemed to be getting traction in the rock arena. That did kind of come to a slide Some stuff from the later 90s. So another criminally underrated singer, Lauren Hoffman. This is her album Megiddo from 1997 or 98. She really came along probably after that sort of music already peaked. Fiona Apple. So with this, the Either Wheel, blah, 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 this insanely long title. Amy Mann putting out good stuff during that time period. Probably late 90s, early 2000s, I was really into Slater Kinney. I know St. Vincent came along a little bit later. And then more recently, a lot of the stuff I've gotten into, some of it is definitely stuff going back in time. Your very classic country, or Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, that sort of stuff. Billie Holliday, Lady Sings the Blues. Those Joni Mitchell albums, those Joan Baez albums. I'll show a Joni Mitchell album. And disco. And if you're going to listen to disco, you should listen to good disco. So you should listen to Donna Summer. And probably the earlier, the better with Donna Summer. And some of the more modern country, Americana music, Margot Price. You know, I've talked a lot about Caitlin Rose. This Own Side Now came their 10th anniversary reissue of it. Brandy Carlisle, sort of local favorite, S.G. Goodman. And then a lot of your like sort of 20-something singer-songwriters. So you've got Courtney Barnett and Phoebe Bridgers and Laura Kidd, who goes by Pin Friend, who's from England. Vanessa Peters, who I discovered recently. I picked up a second album of hers, this Burden of Unshakable Proof. The youngest person I currently have in my collection, Beabadobee. It's a stupid, yeah, she has a dumb name. This is a pretty cool EP called Space Cadet. Very, very early 90s sounding. You can tell she sort of gorged on Spotify with some of this. So that just kind of gave you, I know I ran through a lot of people there, but give you a sense. And there's plenty of great women throughout music that I failed to mention. Maybe I don't have their records, or I just didn't go around pulling it out for this video.